Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we have our second lecture of mathematics, and today we are going to solve our exercise that is on page number 10 of your book. Exercise 1.1 and page number is 10 of your book. Now question number 1 is the given function is f of x is equals to x square minus x, and you have to find the values of this function at point -2, at 0, and then at x minus 1 and f of x square minus 4. In my previous lecture, I have discussed all these type of function, and we have already discussed that how we find the values of these functions at some specific points. Now solution of this question. We have f of x is equals to x square minus x. This is the given function, and we have to find the value of f of minus 2. So what we do? We just replace x by minus 2 in our equation number 1. So what happened? F of minus 2 is equals to minus 2 square minus 2. So minus 2 whole square means plus 4. And this minus multiplied with this minus, it gives you plus 2. So answer is 6. It's very simple, right? Now I would like to solve the third part of this question. F of, and we have f of x minus 1. So since we have the function f of x is equals to x square minus x. So what we do? The same as we have done in the previous part. Replace x by x minus 1 in equation number 1. So this is our equation number 1. So f of x minus 1 is equals to x minus 1 square minus x minus 1. So this equation is becomes x square minus 2x plus 1 minus x plus 1. So when we solve this part, x square minus 3x plus 2. So this is the answer of our this part. So similarly, we can solve the rest of two parts, f of 0 and f of x square minus 4. Now again, we move to the next question. In next question, in question number 2, question number 2. So what we have to find? We have to find f of a plus h minus f of a divided by h, and simplify where f of x is equals to 6x minus 9. So we have to solve this formula, right? And the given function is f of x minus 6, f of x is equals to 6x minus 9. So first we find the values of f of a plus h minus f of a by using this function. First, we just replace this f of x. The given function is f of x is equals to 6x minus 9, and we have to find the values for f of a plus h and f of a to solve this formula, right? So for f of a plus h, similarly, as we have done in our previous question, we replace this x by f a plus h. So replace x by a plus h in equation 1. So here we have, this is our equation number 1. So we write a plus h at the place of this x, and similarly we write 6 and replace this x is again with this a plus h. So 6 into a plus h minus 9 and 6a plus 6h minus 9. Again, this is our second equation, and again we have to find the value of f of a. Again we replace this x by this a. So in equation number 1 we replace this x with this a. So what we write? 6 multiplied by a minus 9. 6 a minus 9. This is our equation number 3. So we put all these value, equation number 2 and equation number 3, in or this formula. We put this value of f of a plus h and f of a in this formula. So what we get? What we have? F of a plus h minus f of a divided by h. And when we put the values of these functions, this equation becomes 6a plus 6h minus 9 minus 6a minus 9 divided by h. And when we simplify the equation, 6a plus 6h minus 9 minus 6a plus 9 divided by h. 6a is cancelled with this 6a, minus 9 with plus 9, and simply we get 6h divided by h. Again h and h are cancelled, and simply we have 6. So 6 is the answer of our question. You can see this question. I will explain it again. What we have in our question? F of a plus h minus f of a divided by h. This is our question, and we have to find this question by using this formula. F of x is equals to 6x minus 9. So what we do when we have f of x minus 6x minus 9, simply we have to find the values for f of a plus h and f of a. And as we have done in the previous question, we just replace this x by a plus h and we get this result. And again, similarly, when we have to find the value for f of a, we replaced this x by this simple a. So we have these two different equation. This is the value for f of a plus h, and this equation shows the value for f of a. And when we put the both values in this or question, f of a plus h minus f of a divided by h, we simply get this answer 6. Similarly, we can find the rest of the other parts of this question, and I would like to solve the fourth part of this question for you. In this question, we have the different function, that is f of x is equals to cos of x. And the rest of question is same. Let me open new file. Okay, so the question was we have to find same f of x. We have to find the value for f of a plus h minus f of a divided by this h. But in this case, we have function f of x is equals to cos of x. We have a trigonometric function. But the rest of method is same. So what we do? First we have to find f of a plus h. Simply we replace this x by this a plus h. So we give this equation we give equation number 1 to this equation, and simply we replace x by a plus h in equation number 1. So what we have, f of a plus h is equals to cos of a plus h. Cos of a plus h. And f of a is equals to cos of a. Now f of a plus h minus f of a divided by h, we have to find this. So when we put the values of these equations, so cos a plus h minus cos of a divided by h, here we have to use the formula. We know that cos of p minus cos of q is equals to minus 2 sine p plus q divided by 2 into sine into sine p minus q by 2. And it becomes minus 2 sine so we use this formula in our question and we have the value for P we have A plus H and for Q we have this A, right? Here we have cos P minus cos Q, but in our question we have cos A plus H minus cos of A. So we replace P by this A plus H and Q by this A. So our equation becomes cos, sorry, not cos, we have to apply the formula. So it becomes minus 2 sine A plus H plus A. This is Q and this is P and this is Q divided by 2 according to this formula, right? And sine A plus H minus A divided by 2 whole divided by H. A plus H is the value of P and A is the value of Q. So similarly, we have changed this equation according to our formula. Now, simply we solve this equation. Minus 2 sine A plus A, 2A plus H divided by 2 into sine. This A is cancelled with this minus A. And what we have, we have simply sine H divided by 2. Now, minus 2 minus 2 minus 2 sine 2A plus H divided by 2 into sine H by 2 whole divided by H. And when we again simplify it more, what we get minus 2 by H sine A plus H by 2 into sine H by 2. Now this is the part 2 of my second lecture. We were doing a question number 3. Express the following. Express the following. Now its first part is the perimeter P of a square as a function of its area A. Now solution. let the length of length of each side of square is x. X unit, then what we have? Now first we draw the figure of this square. So here we have a square and each side of this square is represented by this x. This is what we have. We have square. Now perimeter of square. Perimeter of this square is equals to, how we calculate perimeter? We add all sides of this figure. So this x plus this x plus this x plus this x. So 4 times x we add and get the perimeter of square. X plus x plus x and plus x, and this is equals to 4 times this x, and we call this equation number 1. Now this is the perimeter of a square, but when we will find the area of square, so how we calculate the area? We multiply length into breadth. So here in this case of a square, the length is x and the breadth is also an x. So x multiplied by x is equals to x square. So we can say that perimeter P is equals to 4x and area A is equals to x square. And this is our second equation. Now we can use this value of x. If we write it like this, A under root is equals to x. So in this equation, x shows its value and we can show this value of x in equation number 1. This is our equation number 1 and this is the value of x. So what we do? P is equals to 4x is equals to 4 under root A. Means P is equals to 4 multiplied by under root A. And this equation represents the perimeter P of the square as a function of its area A. Perimeter P of the square as a function of its area A. Right? Now, I will explain this concept in equation in your second part of this equation, this question. And what is the question? The area A of a circle as a function of its circumference C. Now B part. Oh my God. Second part of this question. Let the area A of a circle as a function of its circumference C. So let the radius of circle is x unit. And here we draw the circle. This is the center of a circle and this shows the radius. R is equals to, let's say, x units. Let the radius of a circle is x unit. And we know that area of a circle is equals to pi r square. Or in other words, simply we can write A is equals to pi x square. Instead of using r, here we use x. And this is our equation number 1. And on the other side, we calculate the circumference. Circumference of the circle is equals to 2 pi x. Here we have used x instead of this x. So in general, when we talk about the circumference, we say the circumference of the circle is equals to 2 pi r. But in our question, we are using x instead of this r, right? So in other words, simply we can write C is equals to 2 pi of x. 2 pi into x. So from in this equation number 2, we can find the value of x. So what we get, C divided by 2 pi is equals to x, and this is our equation number 2. So same as we have done in our previous part, what we do, we use this value of x from equation number 2 in equation number 1. A is equals to pi C divided by 2 pi square. We have used the value of x in this equation. So pi C square divided by 4 pi square. And when we simplify this equation, we get C square divided by 4 into pi. So A becomes equals to C divided by 4 pi. And this equation represents the area A of a circle, represent here as a function of its circumference C. Okay. Now the last part of this question is the last part of this question is the volume of a cube as a function of the area of its base. So you can solve it like the previous two parts of this question. I just give you the idea how to solve this part. Okay, question number 3 and part C. The volume V of a cube as a function of the area A of its base. So first we make the figure of cube. Okay, this is the figure of cube. This is the base of our cube, and this side is represented by x, 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 and x. Now, volume of a cube is, wait a minute, let me settle down this. Okay, now volume of cube is equals to V is equals to x into x into x, 3 times of x. Let integrate into height. So V is equals to x cube, and area of a cube is, area of a cube is equals to, sorry, area of a base, area of base is equals to x multiplied by x. So x square A is equals to x square, and this x first I will write here length of each side of cube is x unit. Then we can say that volume of a cube is equals to, V, which is equals to length into breadth into height. So volume becomes equals to x cube, and area of the base is x multiplied by x, and A is equals to x square. And simply, as we have done the previous question, you just find the value of x from this equation and use it in this equation, and finally you get the volume of a uh, volume of this cube, and your equation will represent the volume V of a cube as a function of area A of its base, and you can solve it by yourself. I will start the next question. Question number 4. Find the domain and the range of the function g defined below and sketch of graph of g. Question number 4, its A part is g of x is equals to 2x minus 5. And in this question, we have to find the range and domain of this function. And at the end, we also have to sketch the graph of given function. Okay. So what we do? Simply, in solution, We start the solution of this question. What we have? G of x is equals to 2x minus 5. As g of x is simple polynomial function of degree 1. So in my first lecture, I have told you for polynomial function simply we take real numbers are real numbers are all defined on polynomials. So what we write as g of x means this polynomial function is defined for all x belongs to real number. So when the whole function is defined on real numbers, means from real numbers any number we can input in this function, we get as output, whatever we get as output is again a real number. So our domain and range both are real number. So d means domain of this function g is a real number, and range of this function g is also a real number. So when for plotting for plotting its graph, we have to take some values from these real number. So we make a table. Let's say we take some values. Here we write x, and here we write g of x, which is or y. Okay, and at the right side we take some positive values, and to left side we take some negative values. Suppose let's say first value is or 0. So when we have x is equals to 0, first I make this table, and then I will show how we put the values and get the result. So here you can say, you can write g of x is equals to 2x minus 5. So when we have x is equals to 0, g of 0 becomes 2 into 0 plus 5 is equals to 2 multiplied by 0 plus 5 is equals to 5. So when we have x is equals to 0, g of x become 5. Okay, the next value is, let's say, 1. So when we put uh, wait a minute, when we put x is equals to 1, g of 1 becomes 2 into 1 minus 5, means 2 minus 5 is equals to minus 3. So when x is equals to 1, g of x becomes minus 3. Similarly, we can put different values of x and get the corresponding values of g of x. Let's say next value of x is 2. So g of 2 becomes 2 into 2 minus 5, means 4 minus 5 is equals to minus 1. So here we write when x is equals to 2, g of x is equals to minus 1. And similarly, we can give different values of x and get different values, different corresponding values for g of x. Now, to left side of this x, we give some negative values. Let's say the first negative value is minus 1. Same calculations, when x is equals to minus 1, g of minus 1 is equals to 2 into minus 1 Minus 5 means 2, minus 2, minus 5, minus 7. So when we give minus 1 to when we give the value of minus 1 to x, what we get? Minus 7. Similarly, when we give this x to minus 2, we get minus 9. And with other values, with other negative values, we get the same different results. So we make a scale. Scale means you decide how many along x-axis, along x-axis you decide 1 square is equals to 1 unit, and along y-axis, along y-axis 1 square is also equals to 1 unit. And we make x-axis and y-axis. Here we have the center of this x, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. You must use the graph papers so you can plot a perfect graph for your function. 4, then minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4. Okay, minus 4, minus 5. Please ignore my little mistakes. Minus 6, minus 7, minus 8, and so on. And similarly, we give some values to positive y-axis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now when you see the graph, so what we have? Okay, in our graph, we have, for x we have 5, for x we have 5. Here I will write again the values for values of our table. Okay, our values were x and g of x, right? For 0 we have minus 5, for minus 3, plus 1 we have minus 3. Let me clear it. For 1 we have minus 3, for 2 we have minus 3, and then for negative values, for minus 1 we have minus 7, minus 2, and minus 9, and so on. So for 0, when x, this is our x-axis, and for x-axis, this x shows our x-axis, and this g of x represents our y-axis, right? So on x-axis, when x is equals to 0, g of x gives us -5. So this is our first value, right? And when x is equals to 1, x is equals to this positive 1, g of x is this -3. And when x is 2, again g of x is equals to 2 for 2 we have we have -1, right? So when we have this 2, we have -1. This is our third value. And when x is -1, we have f of x means g of x is -7. Here is the value. And when when x is -2, g of x is -9. So when you join all these points, you get the graph of this function. It must be a straight line because we have a linear function, and whenever we have a linear function, we get a straight line for our function. So I think it's a simple question. First, we decide its domain and range, then we take different values of x, and at those values of x we find g of x, and by plotting all these points on a graph paper, by deciding the scale, we plot our graph of the given function. Now next part of this question is next part of this question is the part 2. This is the second part of this question is when we have g of x is equals to under root x square minus 4. In this function, this is a function in which we have a under root. So we all know that when we have an under root of any function, we exclude those values of x for which we get the imaginary roots of our function. For example, for a real number, when we say that for a real values of g of x, what we do, x square minus 4 is greater than or equals to 0, and x square is greater than or equals to minus 4. When it comes to this side, it becomes positive 4, and x mod is greater than or equals to this 2, means plus minus of x is greater than or equals to 2. So we can write either x is greater than or equals to 2 or minus x is greater than or equals to 2. Which implies that x is greater than or equals to 2 or x is less than or equals to 2 minus 2. Okay, and when we decides is domain of this function, mean domains of this function g, how we can write, means minus infinity to minus 2 union. So here we have a close interval because we are including this point. And again here we have a close interval for positive 2 to positive infinity. Actually what we are doing, in a real number we have an open interval from minus infinity to plus infinity, right? And when we eliminate some numbers from our domain, what we do, from minus infinity to minus 2 union from 2 to positive infinity, and we exclude some point like minus 1, 0 and plus 1. So when we exclude these points and rest of points we take as a domain from minus infinity to 2. Here we have an open interval, and at this point we have a close interval, and again at this point we have a close interval, and at positive infinity we have an open interval. The middle points between minus 2 and plus 2 we excluded at those points, because at those points we get the imaginary roots. And in this part we just take the real roots of our real numbers of our domain, real values at our domain. And again for the range of our function, for the range of our function, what we do, range of g, for range of g just we put x is equals to plus minus 2 in g of x. As we know, x all x are our domain and g of x is our range. So here we have decided the domain of our function, and now we are deciding the range of our function. So we have the points for our x, and just we put the point in our function, we get the range of our function. So when we put g of 2 is equals to 2 square minus 4 under root is equals to 4 minus 4 is equals to 0. Similarly, when we put another point, g of minus 2 whole square minus 4 under root is equals to 4 minus 4 is equals to 0. So means for both points we get 0 result. So we can say that we can say that g of x is positive for all values of values of x in or domain of this function. So range of g is equals to, it started from 0 to, and it ends at positive infinity, from 0 to positive infinity. So this is the range of our function. And again, for plotting the graph of function, make a table x and then g of x. In this case I will make a vertical table, and similarly you just give different values to what g of x is equals to under root x square minus 4. First you can give some positive values, then some negative values. As our function in our domain, we don't have some values like 0, +1 and -1. So we started our domain from 2 or -2. So for positive values, our first value is 2. So for 2, you can calculate g of x, 2 square minus 4 under root. So what we have? We have 0, right? And then you can take another value for 3. You can calculate it. It becomes equals to 2.2. And for another value 4, you can get 3.4. You can calculate it. And these are the positive values. And now you can you must use some negative values also. Here I'm using some negative value. For -2, we have 0 g of x, and for -3, we have 2.2 again, and for -4, we have 3.4, and so on. As we have make a graph in our previous question, similarly, you can plot a graph for this question. You select the scale for this question and give some values: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -2. When you are plotting this graph, you must use the graph paper. -5 and so on. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5 and so on. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I want to show you one thing. In when you have +2, your value is 0. So your first point is this. For 2.2, for when x is equals to 3, your point is here. And for x is equals to 4, your value is. So when you join these points, your graph is like this. And similarly, when you plot it for negative values, your graph look like this shape. And you can see here there is a this graph is known as a discontinuous graph, because there is no connection between these 2 points. This is why, because when you have decided the domain of this function, some middle points are excluded in your domain. So that's why here we have our domain. Some points are excluded in our domain: -1, 0 and 2. So that's why there is a So that's why when we plot the graph of this function, there is discontinuation between its points. There is a discontinuation. Okay. So these are the different question which I have solved for you, and still there are some more parts of this question. You must try these parts at your end, and and still, if you have still some problems, you can discuss with me, and you can message me on my WhatsApp number, and we will discuss